What's up, guys? Welcome back to Almost Functional 40K. For those of you who have been following the channel, probably know I'm a very big Space Wolves player. I've been since 2nd edition, my favorite army. So I talk about them a lot here on the channel. So I'm just going to do a little video about where I feel they are at in Pariah Nexus, what's changed, what's better, what's worse, just what my basic feelings are on them right now. So if you can, go ahead and like, subscribe, share the channel. Just help me get this content out to other players who are interested in this type of stuff. And with that, we'll go ahead and just jump into it. Wolves were at a fairly good spot before the update. The Wolf Jail list in Stormlance was doing fairly well. For those of you who don't know, that's basically 2 to 3 big Thunderwolf units just running, kind of jailing in the opponent, just kind of cramming the board, keeping them out of the middle for the most part, and then just building the rest of the list behind that to support them and score points. That won a couple big events. That was at a very good win. Oh, excuse me. Had a very big win rate. The Space Wolf specific detachment, Champions of Russ, did not. We could not use the sagas, not having one active to begin the game, and they were very hard to achieve most of the time. It just wasn't an attachment I was very fond of, and it didn't perform very well. Most Wolf players who were doing well were running Gladius or Stormlance out of the Marine book. But that has changed a little bit now that the new Pariah Nexus has dropped. So let's go ahead and start looking at some of the changes. So I'm going to start with the simplest of changes, which is the points change. So let's put this full screen so you don't have to look at my face. All right, so this is the Codex. This is the point changes. So we'll start with the just generic Codex Space Marines. You have the Crusader went up, or the Crusader went down. The Redeemer, Reaper, and Valiant all went up. I don't find that many of these were being run in most Wolf lists, so I don't think that affects us too much, although the Crusader at this point cost does give me some consideration to throw it into a list. That might be something I end up playing around with. For 220 points for a Land Raider, that's a lot of shots. I believe with GSC and some of the other things coming around, it is good at killing small horde stuff. It's not as useful into like knights and stuff, but we'll see how this Pariah Nexus meta shapes out. I think we might see a lot of MSU based on the way the secondaries and stuff are working. Then there's just Stormraven Gunship went up, which I don't believe affects a lot of Wolf builds, maybe a few. Then Ironstorm Spirit, I don't think anybody was really taking, but there's some enhancement drops there. The main ones for us are Wolfen and Thunderwolves both went up. Thunderwolves, I think, are still a good value and still worth taking at this price point. Wolfen, with the point increase and some of the Pariah Nexus changes for units that have 0C, I'm not sure if they're worth bringing now, but I don't think it's a complete never bring. Depending on your list and how you like to play, you could bring them. I personally am not going to be, but they still hit hard for what they cost, and they're still with an invul, not the super easy to kill. I mean, they're not hard to kill, but they're not like easy to kill. So you could find uses for them. But I just find I like units that can hold objectives and do secondaries if I need them to, even if that's not their main goal, because you never know how the plan's going to go. Sometimes you might need a unit that's supposed to be killing stuff to sit on an objective for a turn, or to establish a locus or something like that, just to get those points, depending on how your game is going. So I will probably definitely still bring Thunderwolves and some lists, and Wolfen I don't quite think I will be bringing. But with the point changes, I don't think the point changes really hurt us too much. So then the next thing we will go ahead and look at will be the Balance Dataslate. Let me get this pulled up. I wish it would let me pull up multiple at the same time, but I got them doing one at a time the way this is set up. All right, so here's the Balance Dataslate. So the modifying CP stuff, I think, does affect us. The Wolf Lords have the same thing as captains, or if you're just bringing captains, depending on your build. The free strat and the doubling strats really helped some of these detachments that had really good strats, like Storm Lance, Ride Hard, Ride Fast, or the strat to reroll charges and get Lance. Both were very worth doing for free and doubling up on, depending on the turn. So now you can't double up, and the free strat thing is only free if they're 1 CP. If they're more than 1 CP, it just reduces the cost by 1. So that's a little bit of a nerf to us. But the Lord of Deceit change is huge for us, honestly. I think that makes Bjorn amazing. I think he is probably one of the best data sheets with this ability. There was someone else that was talking about someone, I think the Swarm Lord also has it, and he kind of the same thing, really hard to kill. So I think Bjorn and the Swarm Lord both are going to be really good units to bring. I don't know if Bjorn quite works in the Thunderwolf list, just because you can't keep up with them. But some of the new Champion of Russ builds we might be seeing, I think he will be an auto take for a lot of people. So that's that. I don't think there's a lot of other changes that really affected us in the Marine one, because it just affects some of their detachments that we weren't taking, like, was it Ironstorm? So let me get down to them. So Ironstorm, I don't think Marines were really running that. So none of that really affects us too much. The Impulsor and Repulsor change, getting the extra transport capacity, I think is really nice. That is something I will play around with, I believe, when I start messing with some Champion and Russ builds now. This is the change that really affects us, the one in the Champions of Russ. So now at the start of the first battle round, we get to select one of the sagas, excluding Saga of Majesty, and it's just active for us all the time. So just boom, just consider it achieved from the get-go. And then they also changed, so now you can activate sagas per turn, and that's all the rest of this changes in, is just changing that to turn instead of round. So that just makes it easier to get multiple. So if you achieve multiple in the same round, you can get them active. Before, if you achieved 2 in the same round, you had to pick one. Now you can do 1 in your turn, 1 in their turn. That's a really, really nice change, I think. So then we'll roll over and actually look at the Champions of Russ detachment, now that we see what the changes to it are. So still got the restrictions here, tactical squad, so we can't take any of that. But we can activate one of these 3 sagas at the beginning of the game. Saga of the Warriorborn, Saga of the Bear, Saga of the Beastslayer. Warriorborn gives you sustained hits 1, and normally you would have to kill an enemy character with one of your characters to do that. Saga of the Bear gives the whole army a 6-up Feel No Pain. Normally you would have to have one of your characters get below half wounds and survive the turn. Saga of the Beastslayer gives you lethal hits. Normally you would have to kill a monster or vehicle with a character. And Saga of Majesty, which we can't choose, gives everybody +1 OC. And to achieve this, you have to have one of our characters controlling the objective markers in the opponent's deployment zone. I believe Warriorborn is probably going to be the one most often chosen for a couple reasons. One, sustained hits 1 is really nice for most every unit we have. In almost any matchup we have. It's the hardest to achieve other than Majesty, which can't be chosen, I believe. Killing an enemy character in most cases is difficult, especially if they know you're trying to achieve it. They just try to not get that character in there. And if your character whiffs and his unit kills them, or the unit kills before the character swings, it's just not an easy one to achieve. Getting your character wounded and surviving, that's a little more reasonable. You can try it with plasma pistols on some like little cheap battle leaders or something and hope they overheat and then live, and you auto activate it. Rune priests, hazard or seeing their psychic powers. There's ways to achieve this. And then killing a monster or vehicle with a character is a lot more feasible and reliable than killing an enemy character in most cases. So I believe that's those are the main reasons to take Warriorborn. 1 is sustained hits, 1 is really good, and 2, it's the hardest to achieve. The others you can probably get through the game. And also, each one of these helps all of 4 of our strats have caveats at the end that if a saga has been activated, you get bonus stuff for it, and I believe the one for Warriorborn is the best for us, especially starting the game. So we'll look at what those look like. Armor Contempt, same as all Marines Armor Contempt. Just, we all know what that does. Runic Ward, opponent's shooting phase or fight phase just after enemy unit has selected its targets. One Adeptus Stars unit from your army that was selected as a target of those attacks gets a 5-up Feel No Pain against mortal and psychic attacks. And if Saga the Bear is activated, it becomes a 4-up against mortals and psychic attacks. This is very situational. It doesn't work against all damage, just against the mortals and psychic. Now that Devastating does mortals again, it is more useful, so you will have more options, more times when you can use it. But I don't feel you need to go to the 4-up at the beginning of the game and the 6-up Feel No Pain across the board. I just don't feel like that's going to be the most needed most of the time. Next one is Go for the Throat. Fight phase, 1 Adeptus Stars unit from your army. Improve the AP of melee weapons equipped by models by 1. If Beast Slayer has been completed, you also get Lance. That is really light. That is really nice, and I like that. So that is definitely something you want to try to achieve early, taking out a monster or vehicle to pop this for the army. But now with the changes, we're only putting it on 1 unit. We're not doubling up on these, so you're only going to get it in 1 spot. Then we have Death Howl, Fight Phase. 1 Adeptus Stars unit from your army that's destroyed 1 or more enemy units this phase. Till the end of the phase, they consolidate up to 6 inches. And if Majesty has been activated, any enemy unit within 6 inches of where they end their move must take a Battle Shock. I don't think this Battle Shock's really that important. I don't find Battle Shock has that much effect on my games most of the time. So just having the first part of this active is really all you need. Because Majesty, you're probably not going to achieve very early in a game most of the time. Then you got Warrior Pride. This is the one I think is the best. Your command phase, 1 Adeptus Stars character from... Oh, no, sorry. This isn't the one. Select 1 saga that's not completed by your army. So basically, you put this on a character's unit, and they have the benefit of acting if a saga has been completed. I believe, don't quote me on this, that this would allow you to use a stratagem as if that saga had been completed. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then Relentless Assault, your movement phase, just start as move from your army, made a fallback or advance. Until the end of the turn, they're eligible to shoot, even if they fell back or advanced. And if Warriorborn has been completed, they're eligible to charge as well. So this is the one I think is the best. This still gives you the option to run the Thunderwolves. If you are bringing a big squad of Wolf in, Ragnar with some Blade Guard. There's lots of units that could benefit. Well, Ragnar already gives his unit advance and charge, so you don't need it on Ragnar's unit. But Judicar with some Blade Guard, Logan with some Terminators. There's lots of units that would be benefiting from the advance and charge. So that's why I think you have this as the... That's why I think you take Warriorborn, the third reason. It's the hardest to achieve. Sustained hits 1 is really good, and this is the stratagem I think you want fully unlocked. So then we roll down into the enhancements. Pelt of the Beowulf. Start of the fight phase, each unit with engagement range take a Battle Shock test. That's okay. Black Death. Bear's melee weapons have anti-monster 4-up and anti-vehicle 4-up. This is really nice, especially put it on like a Wolf Lord or something that has dev wounds. Just let him roll into some big stuff and start popping devs in there. The Frost Weapon. Start these models only. Bear's melee weapons have precision, and the strength and arm AP of the attacks are improved by 1. So that's not bad, giving your guy precision. And then the Wolf-tailed Talisman, each time attacks allocated as a bear, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic. Black Death is amazing. Frost Weapon's solid. Wolf-tailed Talisman's okay. Pelt of the Beowulf's the only one I'm not really super excited about. But then the rest of this is just our data sheets, which haven't really changed. So I think Champions of Russ has really, really improved. I'm taking Stormlance Thunderwolf Jail to ATC in 2 weeks. I just didn't have time to playtest a new detachment build and all the new missions, so I just stayed with the detachment that's kind of been running and just tweaked it slightly to fit the new missions and the couple points we lost. But once I get back, I am really excited to start trying out some Champion of Russ builds. I really think there is some good stuff here. and I am looking forward to playing around with it and seeing what I can do with it, taking it to some local events. Then in the Space Marine errata, the only thing that really affects us is that we can no longer take Apothecary, Devastator squads, or Tactical squads in the detachments from the Space Marine book. Up until this, we were, if you took like Storm Lance or Gladius, you could take those units. Now we just, as Space Wolves, can never take those. One of the last things I want to look at is the Pariah Nexus Tournament Companion. I want to look at these layouts and how they work out for us. So we'll go up here with layout 1. So for those who don't know, the blue sections here are areas that are supposed to be 2 inches or shorter and can be moved across. You just can't end on top of any of the pieces. The gray areas are supposed to be 4 inches or higher, so shouldn't be able to be moved across. I believe that's how that worked. Yeah, more than 4 inches, 2 inches. Yep. So even though they don't show walls in some of these spaces, I believe if you're not infantry, you're not supposed to be able to move across them. I'm not sure if they're going to rule. So if the wall's not there, you can move across it. I believe that's the way it should be. If there's no wall there and your base fits, you can move. But if there is a wall, you treat it as 4 inches or higher and you can't move across it. I guess different places could play that different ways. But layout 1, I really like for wolves. There's like 2 like little shooting lanes here and 1 here, but there's lots of good positioning spots for staging your combat units to threaten the middle and threaten all the side objectives. The Thunderwolf list has a little more. No, not on this one. This one's not bad because they can run across this. So the Thunderwolf list still has decent mobility on this layout. So I think this is one of the better ones for wolves. Layout 2, the middle is a little more open. We got this really long firing line here, but not much this way. So you can stage kind of, like most of our deployments are going to be these sides like this. So you can kind of stage pretty good without getting too many shots on you, which is good for us. Wolves can come across here. Wolves can come around here. Thunderwolves vehicles, and then your infantry can just go through stuff. So I think this is another decent, really solid layout for us. Same with 3. Lots of blocking, not a lot of good line of sight across the table. Lots of little 2-inch spots that our big stuff can just run across, and then our infantry goes through. So first 3 layouts, I think, are really good for wolves. These boards are a lot more cluttered than they used to be, which I think is good for melee armies. Blood Angels, Templars, Orc builds. I think a lot of that will benefit from these layouts. Layout 4 is a lot more wide open in the middle. You have a really big shooting gallery across here, and you can get some shots down through these angles here. So this one I think is a little harder for us because they're going to be able to get more shots on you as they come across, but you can play some of these flanks and still, if you have fast enough units, they can go through the walls, get to spots. But this one is one of the 2 that I find are the least favorable for wolves. The second one being layout 5, which also has these wide open firing lanes. So these are the 2 worst out of the 8. I think there's 2 that are really bad for us, and there's 2 that are really good, which are 1 and 8 are really good for us. 4 and 5 are bad for us. The other 4, which are 2, 3, 6, and 7, are all good for us. Good for us. Not amazing, but they're I think in our favor in most matchups. So then going to 6, once again here, got some line of sight, not a lot of firing lanes. The middle's got stuff that the Thunderwolves can move across to get places. So I really like 6. 7, a little more weird with these here. Like there's no good firing lanes other than this one down across here. Hiding one here, but it's gonna be easy to hide from. Shift to the side of it. But wolves can move across these good, so the middle's open for us. The only problem I see with like the big Thunderwolf lists is coming through here. You're gonna have to funnel through here or funnel through here, come around. So they're gonna be a little harder to get from our side to their side. Infantry lists, won't care about that at all. So this is really good for infantry-based wolves. If you're running the heavy Thunderwolf list, you will be funneled a little more. It'll be a little harder to get all your models in on charges and stuff if you're trying to get to the enemy side. But if you just come here, wolf jail the middle, keep them off the center objective and make them come to you, should still be okay. 8, this is my favorite, especially against shooting armies. The middle's wide open for Thunderwolves. Thunderwolves can come running through here. You station them over here. Our infantry can jump behind these, jump between. This is really good for staging against shooting armies. There's really no line of sight across the board. There's some decent line of sight like over on the sides here, but you're not shooting from here across, which I think really, really favors us. So all in all, I think most of the layouts are good for us. 4 and 5 are a little more challenging depending on the matchup, but they don't make the game unwinnable. They're not like, oh my God, we can't win on these. You just have to plan a little more carefully on those. And then the other thing to talk about is the Pariah mission deck. The new missions, I think we have a lot of stuff we can take that's fast. You can take jump intercessors. We have access to infiltrators, scouts, ATVs, assassins, any of that stuff that regular Marines have access to. So we should have the tools to be able to score the secondaries and score the primaries. You just have to plan save points for that in your lists. I really like infiltrators, especially with some of the deep strike army and the clarifications on like coming down turn 1 and stuff like that. Like demons got a lot of buffs, so like infiltrators, 1 squad at least. 2, if you can afford it, scouts are great. Jump back intercessors, inceptors, amazing. One of the 130 points. They're pricey for 3, but that 3-inch deep strike is amazing for scoring secondaries, and their guns are solid if you need to. I know some people are running 2 to 3 small units. I know some people are running like 1 small unit, 1 big unit, just drop in, because with a 3-inch drop in, 6 inceptors with plasma or bolter can really put in some work. So I think that really favors us. You take your Thunderwolf build or your Ragnar build or whatever you want the main core of your damage to be, and just take some of these other small units behind it to score your points. But yeah, that's the basically most of the changes. The heroic intervention going to 1 CP. Depending on how your list plays, if you're super assaulty hitting first, that's actually a bad thing for us because people can come in with a second unit and then swing before us. Or no, then do they get to swing first with armor? No, I don't think they get to swing first with heroic intervention, but they do get to bring another unit into the combat. So that's just things to watch out for. But most of the changes, I think, are good for us. Champions of Russ got better. I think the layouts and the missions are good for us. The CP change hurts us in one way, but it makes Bjorn amazing. So it's not overall a bad thing for us. The Thunderwolves going up basically cost that list 1 unit for doing actions and stuff, but I think it's still fine. But overall, I think Wolves are still in a solid place. They may be a hair below where they were before, but I think they are still fully capable of winning an event in the right hands. I think missions, layout, and pairings always play a big deal in that. A little luck, hitting a 10-inch charge, not failing a 4-inch charge, stuff like that can really affect Wolves because we are a combat-heavy army. But I'm really happy with where they're at compared to where they've been at some points over the last few years. So if you're a Wolf player, I would be super happy with where we're at. I would definitely start playing around with Champions of Russ. When I get back from ATC in 2 weeks, I will definitely be playing around with some builds and putting some lists up and letting you guys know how they do. I will have a video coming up next week after the ATC lists have been submitted, showing you what my list is. They have to be submitted Sunday, so I'll probably put out what my list is early next week, just so you guys can see what it is, and then I'll let you know how I decided on that list, what I had in, what I took out, what I learned in some of my games, and then I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you guys updated on how we do at ATC. how I do personally, how my team does, and stuff like that. But once again, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that normal YouTube stuff. It really helps me out. And I will catch you guys next time.